Welcome to the Emerging Startup Series at the Coffee Conversation Show, powered by the Emerging India Forum, TIF, and a tech partner, Prime Infotech Solution. Theme is Digital Labor, Human Ingenuity, Jesse Anglen's Playbook for the AI Revolution. We have with us uh, Jesse Anglen, co-founder and CEO at Rapid Innovation, a product studio turning AI agents into digital employees for forward-thinking companies. From pioneering blockchain enabled smart contracts to leading the charge in agentic AI systems, Jesse has spent over a decade helping entrepreneurs raise hundreds of millions of dollars and bring cutting edge tech products to life. His vision is bold yet simple: free humans from low value tasks so they can focus on creativity and strategy, while AI handles the grunt work. As digital labor becomes the next industrial revolution, Jesse stands at the forefront of transforming how we work, build, and innovate. And let's understand Jesse as a person. So, welcome, Jesse, to today's coffee conversation.
Hey, awesome to be here. I'm very excited.
Okay, cool. So, let me explain you. There will be three rounds: professional journey, personal journey, and a surprise rapid fire round where you will be in the hot seat and user inspiration, niche marketing, which will be autographed and
Sweet.
sent to you.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. So, friend, I'm Lion Amir Virani, host at Coffee Conversation, legal tech evangelist at Prime Infotech Solution, author of 15 books. We help law firms, corporate legal, startups, and SMEs with world-class technology, software licensing, and tech training solutions. So, just see my first question for your professional journey round. How has the journey shaped up, and what were the key defining moments?
Yeah, how far back do you want me to go? Because I've been working on where I'm at today for probably the last two and a half decades. Um, but I guess I'm gonna go to the beginning, and I'll be very sparse on the details when it comes to the personal side, since we'll get into that next. But I hated school. School was just one of the most boring things that I had ever done in my entire life. I didn't understand why people were making me learn things. It was terrible. And so when I was when I was 13 years old, I decided that I was going to power through the rest of high school, and finished all the way through grade 12, and then I got a job, and that was my first experience really working for somebody else. And I don't know if it was the arrogance of a teenager, but when working for other people, I always felt like they were making stupid decisions, even as like a 17-year-old, 18-year-old. And so eventually, when I was probably when I was 17 years old, I started my first business so I could be my own boss. And this was in the construction industry, so I was building houses, and eventually I decided building houses is like was a terrible idea, because it was hard on your body. It's hot in the summer, cold in the winter. It was a terrible job. And so I decided I would get into real estate, and I would start selling houses. Since I knew how to build them, let's start selling them. So I did that for a while. That was where I started my first software company or software startup, and fell in love with the process of building software. Um, and then kind of the key pivotal moment that brought me to where I am today was I met this guy named Zach Doty. And Zach Doty was still one of the smartest people I've ever met in real life. Back in 2010, he had about almost $3 million worth of cash flowing real estate. And he called me up one day and said, I want to sell all of my real estate, and I want to buy this thing online that I found called Bitcoin. And I was like, I don't know what Bitcoin is, but I know selling all of your, I mean, he was going to sell almost $3 million worth of real estate. He only had about $250,000 worth of equity. Um, and so he was basically going to throw this real estate away and buy this scam that he found online called Bitcoin. So I sat down with him for coffee, tried to talk him out of it. He didn't listen. Ended up selling everything he owned, buying a ton of Bitcoin between the end of 2010, beginning of 2011. Eventually, that turned into, five, six, $700 million. And I went to work with him because I thought, man, he must be smarter than I am if he's able to take $250,000, turn it into $700 million. And so he hired me to manage a team of blockchain developers. And I had no prior experience doing any development. I didn't go to school for engineering. I had never written a line of code in my life. And I told him I don't think it's a good idea to hire me to do this. And he said, it's fine. Just hop on YouTube and learn how to program. And I said, is it that easy? He's like, oh yeah, easy, easy. Like anyone can learn to program. You just have to watch YouTube videos for 3 months. And I didn't know any better, and so I did. I hopped on YouTube and learned enough about development that I could start working with these developers, and uh, and then that was my first entry into the service side of entrepreneurship because we started helping not only him, he had lots of ideas, but other clients build out startup ideas, and I was a part of launching 98 different startups over the course of the next year and a half with the team that I put together. Fell in love with the process of helping entrepreneurs build startups, and so eventually, when Zach and I parted ways, I started Rapid Innovation. Rapid Innovation was just a software development company focused on helping startups. Um, and then the next key pivotal moment for me happened in probably 2021, maybe, when a guy that was working for me uh, built out a system to onboard clients using ChatGPT 3, I believe at the time. And he took a process that normally took us between 4 to 6 weeks and turned it into a process that took between 4 and 6 days. And I saw the potential for digital labor. Now, there was no such thing as an agentic system back then. Digital labor wasn't a word that I think anyone had ever said. Um, People were talking about RPA and they were talking about other things like that. Uh, but for me, what I knew was this: I could build an agentic system and I could augment my very best people and get a lot more work done and create a lot more value in a lot less time. And so it was a no-brainer. So we started playing around with how to really implement digital labor even inside our own company and have been doing that ever since. And then for the last, I would say, this last year, we pivoted and decided that we're going to focus solely on digital labor and helping companies build out agentic systems that augment their very best people inside their company. And so we've done a bunch of different stuff like that. But that's the shortest version. There's like a version where it takes me probably 8 hours to get through if we wanted to ever do like a really long podcast.
Wow. Okay, let's dive deep into conversation, Jesse. How do you approach balancing speed and ethics when deploying cutting edge AI solutions?
you know, I don't, that's a hard question because the ethics for who kind of, meaning, I'll give you an example of a conundrum that I got myself into 3 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. There was a company in the Midwest here in the US that wanted to build an agentic system that would handle all of their inbound sales calls. And so I put a guy on it for 3 weeks. We built the system and then deployed it. And he was able to replace 300 salespeople the next day, like let all of them go. Those 300 salespeople were costing him between $2.5 to $3 million US every month. Um, so ethically speaking, like like there's a whole lot of ethics questions in that, right? Like, is that a good idea? Should he have done it? Should I have been a part of it? Lots of people lost their jobs. I think that over the course of the next 5 years, we're going to be faced with that decision on a much bigger scale than I was faced with that decision. Like, how many thousands and thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of jobs should we be, replacing, and what are those people going to do? The truth is I know in my vision of what the future looks like, when you start to implement digital labor, what ends up happening is that the cost to produce value that is currently being produced by humans is reduced significantly. I mean, in some cases, 98%. And so all of a sudden, what used to cost you, what used to cost you a dollar, or let's say I'll use rupees. What used to cost you 100 rupees now costs you 2 rupees to do the same thing, right? And all of a sudden value becomes cheaper, and scarcity could become a thing of the past, right? Because as the world's able to produce more for less, everything in theory should become more affordable, and there should be more of it. And so the scarcity mindset that human beings have always had, that should begin to go away. That's the future that I'm looking forward to. How we navigate there over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, I'm not 100% sure, because there's going to be a big transition, right? Like, we're going to be taking human beings who have been responsible for creating value for the last, 100,000 years. We're going to be taking those human beings, and we're basically going to say, hey, listen, we're going to outsource your job of creating value to a machine, and that machine's going to do it for a lot less. You're going to be able to then reap the rewards of and the benefits of that value being created for so much less, but you're not going to have a job. How we navigate the not having a job bit, that's still up in the air to me. I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that it is the right decision to create more for less, because that means that everyone gets access to more for less. Poverty could be a thing of the past. We could live in a world where people don't go hungry, where we have no poor, because where everyone has access to everything that the middle class and upper class have access to. Like, that is a world that could be real, and I think it ought to be done. And so I'm going to let the regulators and other people smarter than me deal with all of the ethics. And I'm just going to build really cool systems that replace people and create value for less money, and we'll see how the chips fall when they fall.
Wow, beautiful. So, having worked in both blockchain and AI, what parallels do you see between these two waves of innovation?
The truth is that there aren't a ton of parallels. There's some opportunities, I think, but one thing about blockchain, having spent a lot of years in the blockchain space and having gotten in very early, blockchain as a technology, so like distributed ledger technology, is a very, very narrow use case of things that you can do with it. Um, it's a way to own digital assets, whatever that means. There's some really, really cool applications for trustless transactions, where you can do like very, very large transactions with anonymous parties or people that you don't trust, and you can trust the transaction instead of the person. For tracking things, there's some really interesting applications. And so and I also think there's a pretty good use case for just the money side of things, like how to make digital money and kind of upgrade from fiat to something, fiat 2.0. Um, but I and on the other hand, with AI is very broad. Like, I think that, like, we've been using AI for the last 30 years, 20 years without really paying that close attention. People wonder why, when they hop on their Netflix, the recommended shows are always good, right? Well, that's because Netflix uses AI to predict what it is that you're going to be interested in. Like, when you're texting on your iPhone and it predicts the next word, or even the fact that it knows what button you're trying to push when you don't push it exactly, like, that's all AI. Like, AI has been helping us for a long time. But the human interface portion that we figured out with these large language models, like, I do think that that's going to change the world in a very broad way. Like, eventually people are going to be having conversations with their computers rather than trying to interface with them with a mouse and a keyboard. Eventually software is going to build itself and customize itself for us. There's going to be some really, really broad implications. So I think they're both innovative and they have that in common. They have the ability to probably disrupt things globally, and they have that in common. Um, but the things that people are going to do with AI are very, very different than the things that people are going to do in the blockchain space, in my opinion.
Wow. So just you call digital labor the next industrial revolution. Can you unpack what that means for startups and enterprises uh, for the global market?
Yeah, super simple. If you go back to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution and you look at a farm, which is probably the easiest comparison, there used to be 150 employees on your basic 500-acre, 1,000-acre farm. And those employees would get up and they would hook up the horses and they would do all this stuff manually, right? You used human bodies. Well, then we go and figure out how to build these big engines, and we can do it inexpensively because we have factories that make all the different parts. And then we can sell this a tractor that can replace 100 people, right? To the same farmer who owns that farm, and we can sell it cheap enough that he's going to save money, overpaying the labor that he had on the farm. In that original industrial revolution, that took, I think they say that they kind of mark it as around 100 years, and it replaced roughly half the jobs globally, right? So maybe even a little bit more than that, 80%, over the course of that 100 years. All of those other people went and found other jobs, and we created, that we had factories that they needed to go work in, and someone needed to make the parts for the tractors and sell the tractors and do all that stuff. And it was across tons of industries. I'm just using farming as an example. Well, the same thing is going to happen inside the AI industrial revolution, because if me as a business owner, if I have 100 people that I have hired in order to do something, doesn't matter what it is, and all of a sudden someone comes to me with a product, i.e., a tractor, right? But in this case, an AI product that can replace those 100 people, and I can now deliver that same product to my clients, but without the overhead and the hassle of having 100 people. Am I, as a business owner, going to do it? Yes, 100% for sure. So that's how they're the same. The one key difference, it's from all the research that I've done and the people that I've had conversations with. It's going to happen faster. And what I mean by that is, so to put it in perspective, uh, globally, the knowledge work jobs pay out about $52 trillion a year. So that's anyone who's working with a phone or a keyboard behind a computer. They don't have a physical labor job. Currently, if AI does not improve at all, as of 3 months ago when I read this report, it is estimated that about somewhere between 18 and 21 trillion dollars worth of those jobs can be replaced by AI and will be replaced by AI within the next 5 to 10 years. If AI continues to improve like we've seen it improve, the numbers will be much higher, than 18 to 21 trillion, which means that half of the knowledge work jobs globally are going to be replaced in 5 years, compared to you know half of the physical labor jobs were replaced in 100 years. And so somehow we have to take the amount of change that almost destroyed the world economically over the course of 100 years, and we have to somehow cram that down into 10 years and deal with the same problem. Um, and that's really how they differ, but the same thing is going to happen because the motivation is the same. We want cheaper food. That's what they were saying back then. The farmers were like, man, if I can let go of my 200 employees, I can buy one tractor and do the same thing. then I'll be able to compete and sell my food for so much less because it costs me so much less to produce it. And so then all of a sudden the price of food reduces drastically. We're going to see the same thing in the AI industrial revolution, where the cost of producing value, whatever that happens to be, whether that's new applications, SaaS products, vehicles, engineering, medical devices. It doesn't really matter. This is going to span, I think, all industries. The cost to produce value in those industries will be reduced greatly, and then the cost that you have to sell that to, consumers is going to go down. And we just need to somehow figure out what to do with $21 trillion worth of jobs that are going to be eliminated in the next 5 to 10 years or more.
Wow. So, Jesse, you have worked with on 50 plus agentic AI workflows. Which industries do you think are most ripe for disruption by AI agents?
So I'll get a lot of flack for this probably, but number one is going to be software engineering.
Mhm.
We're not there yet. As of today's date, you can't go on and ask a computer to write you sophisticated code and it goes and does it. But I would say that with the right structure and the right knowledge, you can get a large language model to write better code than most anybody on planet Earth, and that's only getting better. I mean, it's increased in the last 6 months. It's gotten so much better. It's mind-boggling. And even in the last month, it's gotten so much better. It's mind-boggling, really. And so, software engineering is probably going to be gone. I think that sales and marketing is going to be greatly impacted. Right now it's already a heavily automated industry, and it's going to become even more heavily automated. I think that a lot of content creation is going to get replaced. We've already seen a lot of that happen. They say that 98% of what's on the internet is now created by AI because of the massive amount of content that's being created. Same thing with like Amazon books are getting written. People were putting out one book every month. Now they're putting out 15 books a day. Amazon, I just saw this the other day. Amazon now has a limit on how many new books you can upload to be published on its platform per day, which is a funny thing to even think about because it wasn't possible to create a book in a day. And now they have to limit the number of new books that you can publish per day. And so I think we'll see that get disrupted. And then beyond that, I think it's going to be a lot of administrative and operational things. Like right now, we hire people like project managers to go and manage projects, but large language models and agentic systems are so much better at managing operational tasks than we are and administrative tasks than we are. And so I think we're going to see that area get wiped out. I think that analytics and insights, where you're drawing connections in large pieces of data, I think we're going to see that whole industry get wiped out. Like I really do think it's going to affect, at least in the next decade, it's going to affect almost every aspect. Customer service, that would be another one. That I think that if you look at a ranked list, customer service is at the top, sales and marketing is second, operations is third, and HR is fourth. Um, and they're probably going to be wiped out in those areas. But I think it'll be like inside my company, for instance. I went from having around 400 people that worked for me to having, let's say, 400 engineers and support staff and everything else to having 100. Um, and the rest of those jobs were able to be replaced by AI that's now doing it at, 2 cents on the dollar, a 98% efficiency. I, I think a lot of stuff in academics is going to be wiped out. I think teachers are going to like, here's the thing. Right now, how teaching works is that you get one teacher and a classroom of people, and there's going to be some students that struggle because they learn faster or slower. And that was my problem, right? Is that I just no one could move fast enough, and I got so bored in school because everything was so slow. And I had some learning disability issues where I struggled to learn in certain areas. Well, my kids that have access to these large language models in their schooling, and it tutors them like you've hired a private tutor, and so every single child on planet Earth can now have a private tutor to teach them exactly what it is that they want to know. So I think that we'll watch that industry get decimated probably, because the quality of teaching could be increased so much, or at least augmented. Uh, what other ones are top of mind? I think that's it. I mean, it's gonna be far-reaching, I believe. I mean, I think digital labor is going to affect almost every aspect of it. It's kind of like computing. Like in the olden days, in the 80s, people were like, you know what? Maybe one in every 10 families will have a computer in their house. Well, gosh, what's silly is like I've got a computer right here. I've got a computer there on the desk. I've got three computers inside. I've got more. My wife has a computer in her pocket. Like you can probably look around your office and count four or five computers. I mean, I can see two right now from where I'm sitting. Uh, like there's like computers are so prevalent. It has affected everyone's lives. I see kids at the store that are 5 years old and they're walking around with a computer that would have blown everyone's mind in 1985. And so I think that AI is going to be very much like that, where I think we're going to be surprised at how many industries it actually affects. I'm also a pretty strong believer in this idea that at some point in the next 5 years, there will be an entrepreneur that builds a unicorn and never hires a second employee. Meaning they have an idea, they get the entire software platform developed by AI. They build their customer service on AI. They build their operational capacity on AI. They build everything, and it's a one-person unicorn, which means that one guy will bring a company to $1 billion valuation by himself in a year, or I mean, in under 5 years. I think that's going to happen in the next 5 years, almost certainly, because we have this. And I think when it happens once, it'll start happening again and again and again. And pretty soon, you're just going to see a lot more innovation, and it's going to move a lot faster than it ever has. So
Wow. So as you said, you have a global workforce of 400 persons team. Can you walk us through the process steps you have established and uh, what are the biggest challenges you have faced and how did you overcome them?
yeah, well, right now I don't have a team of almost 400 people. I've basically got I think 100 people in the team now, because I've utilized a lot of digital labor systems to reduce the need for people like I had before. Um, Challenges. Yeah, this is a hard question. I Over the course of my career, I have probably hired around maybe 3,000 people, give or take, across all the different businesses I've owned, and fired lots of people. I have spent a lot of time just working with people, and I will tell you, and I don't think I'm alone in this. One of the not the but one of the hardest parts of running any business is dealing with the people. And if you talk to any successful CEO, any successful startup, where they've actually had to grow and have worked with a significant number of people, you will find that one of the most challenging things you can do is work with people. And the reason for that is that people have really good forgetters. And so as the CEO, I can tell people like, this is where we're going, this is what we're going to do, this is the vision. And within 3 months, most of them have forgotten. And there's some sort of drama that's going on that is going to distract people. And it takes so much effort and so much work and so much accountability to get people to produce value. Meaning you've got to deal with, my wife and I had a fight last night and I'm distracted this morning. My car got broken into and I'm distracted this morning. I didn't sleep well last night and this happened. I'm fighting with Susan over in HR, and so now I don't want to talk to her anymore. And I'm gonna go start telling other people bad things and like all the politics and all of everything else. It just creates so much friction that it makes the actual just creation of value, right? Which is what people are supposed to be doing. Like people are supposed to, in an enterprise, people are supposed to be taking raw resources, whatever that is. Well, in some cases that's just thoughts, right? It's just ideas and creativity. We're supposed to be processing through that stuff. And then on the other side, we're supposed to be making it more valuable so that other people are interested in paying for it. And because their lives are going to be enriched in some way. To do that with people is wildly inefficient. Uh, and so I would say that's always been one of my biggest challenges is the fact that I've had to work with people. The other challenges that I've had to overcome, I think, are for me personally, it's that I'm easily distracted. I like the newest things. That's why I've always run companies that are on the cutting edge of technology. I was dealing with blockchain in 2011, which it was brand new. I was dealing with you know, these large language models when they first came out before ChatGPT 3.5 was even a thing and the world blew up. Like I've always been very, very early to the technological scene, and that has created some challenges because a lot of people don't understand what it is that I do or how it can help them. I was talking to a really successful business owner um, what day? Oh, last week, I guess. And I was talking to him about agentic systems. And I'd been going on for like 2.5 minutes, and he interrupted me. He's like, "Hey, Jesse, I don't know what an agentic system is." I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. There are still people who have no idea like what these terms are and what digital labor means and what an agentic system is or even what an agent is and how you can get an agent to do real work. Like the majority of the world doesn't understand these things yet. Um, and that's presented certain challenges for selling things because people don't understand what I'm selling. They don't understand the value that it adds um, until for another 2-3 years probably.
Wow. Okay. Uh, I'm curious to ask you one question for viewers out there. As AI is taking up human task, will it take up the emotional part? Like there have been cases where they turn to ChatGPT for instead of going to a therapist for going to ChatGPT for consultation. Uh, is it a healthy trend? And do you think AI will become take over the emotional part of a human?
I hope not. But yes, the short answer to your question is yes. I do think that that's going to happen, and I have a bunch of examples of how I've watched this happen. But I think that is one of the most intrinsic dangers of AI. Um, you're old enough to have watched the social media revolution happen, right? Where relationships changed from being a thing where people used to hang out together and they would all, they would go down to the pub or they would go to the park or they would do something, right? And they would hang out as people together and build relationships. Well, then social media came around, and all of a sudden, what we had this synthetic version of a relationship that you could have where you could present what you wanted people to see. And you could have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of friends. I remember having 1,500 friends on Facebook before I finally got rid of social media. And what you ended up with was 1,000 friends and no one who knew you, right? You had 1,000 friends and no real relationships because you had substituted the real for the unreal. Um, and I don't think that was good. And actually, you see, like the generation just after me, probably that are in their they're 18 to 20 years old right now. They're walking away from social media. They are a lot of them are walking away from the digital stuff that they watched, in some senses really harm their parents. And I think there's going to be a parallel, but it's going to be way, way worse with AI. You know, if people want to feel what it feels like to have a relationship with an AI, they can go and talk to something like Sesame.ai is an AI model that you can go and have a conversation with. Um, and it's free. You can just go. Anyone could go do it, and it feels like you're talking to a person. Like she will mirror and match you, or he will, depending on what model you're talking to. they sound really interested in your life. They ask really good questions. The first time I ever went and had a conversation with Sesame, I probably talked to her for 45 minutes. And I just got lost in the conversation because it was very, very stimulating. It was it was just a very good conversation, like better than the conversations I have with most people. And I thought after that interaction, I thought, man, this is going to be a thing that is going to change the world. And there's tons of stories about people. I just read a story maybe 2 3 weeks ago about a guy who basically fell in love with his AI, and his wife finally told him, "Listen, if you don't put that thing away, I'm going to divorce you." And his answer was, "Then go ahead. Like I don't need you anymore. I have this." And he was happier with his relationship with his AI than he was with his relationship with her, which is bizarre. There was a
Hmm.
gal who basically created a digital girlfriend experience for lonely men. This was 2 years ago, maybe year and a half ago. Um, and you could go on, have a relationship, do all this stuff. You paid by the minute to go on and have this relationship with this girl. In her first month, I think she made $30 million at $1 a minute. I mean, think about how many people had to be, subscribed to this like fake girlfriend experience online. Once again, it's just replacing human relationships. So I think that isolation is not good for people. Like the suicide rates go up when people are isolated, motivation goes down. Like human beings are not meant to live in complete isolation. There's actually a form of torture that we do to people. Um, where we put them in isolation and we consider it inhumane and torture, right? But we're creating this world with social media and now with AI relationships where we are isolating human beings more so than ever before, and I don't think it's good. But I do think it's going to happen. Like, yes, the answer is yes, and I think it's probably for me at least one of the scariest aspects of AI.
Yes. Okay. So, just in your experience, what's the biggest misconception companies have about integrating AI into the operations?
That it can't do it. You know, I fought this at my company for a long time. Um, Generally speaking, what happens is somebody who's very, very proficient in anything, doesn't matter what it is. So if you're good at interviewing people, when they do a job application, if you're good at writing code, if you're good at writing SEO optimized blog articles, it doesn't matter. If you're good at project management, and holding people accountable, if you're good at coming up with OKRs, if it doesn't matter what you're good at. If you're really good at it, and you go use AI for the first time and ask it to do your job, what you will find is that it won't do a good job generally. Um, and usually that's because the input is lazy, right? And you don't realize what you know and what you haven't told the machine. And so most people who are really good at something will go and try to use AI to do, to help them. The output will not be very good. And then they'll give up on it immediately and just say, this will never work for what I'm doing. Uh, and so that is number one. Like people just don't believe that it's true. And what I find interesting is if you give me an hour with any skeptic, I can prove to them that AI can do a better job at their job than they can. Almost always. There's exceptions to that rule, but half the time I'm right. Um, so that'd be hurdle number one. Hurdle number two is just I think the optics of it, especially in the digital labor space. Nobody wants to be the company that says I'm going to fire all of my people and hire digital labor because it looks really, really bad, and nobody really knows what to do. Like, how do we deal with the fact that we have access to this inexpensive labor? So that'd be number two. Um, and then I would say number three is that the technology is changing really fast. For
Yeah.
instance, if you ask me today, Jesse, what's your favorite large language models for doing different tasks? I would have a list for you and I'd give it to you. If you asked me the same question a month ago, the list would be different. If you asked me the
Yeah.
same question 2 months ago, the list would be different. We're innovating, the industry is innovating so incredibly quickly that it is borderline impossible for a human being to keep up with it. In fact, I have AI agents that work for me that their entire job is to go out and search the internet for everything that they know I would feel is relevant and bring it back to me, so that I can keep up to date on what's happening in the space. Otherwise, I would get lost. There's no
Yes.
way a human being could keep up with the amount of change that's currently happening. So those three things, probably.
Wow. Beautiful. Okay. Uh, I'm really curious to know the story behind the naming of your venture, Rapid Innovation, and how has its vision evolved over time?
The naming was super simple. We were trying to think, what do we do? Like, what do we care about as a founding team? And that I had always been involved in the startup space, which because I love innovation. And one of the keys, in my opinion, to a successful startup is moving quickly. Because over time people get burnt out, vision gets lost. Like getting to MVP, to something valuable as quickly as possible, is vitally, vitally important. And it doesn't even matter if that's like an innovation inside an existing company or a brand new company. Like you just need to move quickly on the first iteration so that people can catch the vision and start pushing away and refining slowly over time. And so rapid innovation just made sense because that is what all of us wanted to do, and it's what I love to do, and it's what I wanted to do as a company. Um, and so that's how we got the name. What was the second part of the question? I forgot
How
it.
has the vision evolved over time?
Yeah, so I mean, in the beginning, I was in love with blockchain because I loved the innovative stuff that you could do with it, and I loved the paradigm shift that was happening and the different ways of thinking because of it. The truth is, though, when I found AI, I just felt I it was like I lost my love of blockchain in a lot of ways, because the things that I want in life, like my kind of my mission and my vision since I was maybe 19 years old and could verbalize it, has been I wanted to do something that had an impact on or created a better user experience for people. And it didn't matter where it was, like a better way to drive a car, a better way to build a house, a better way to do anything. Like that's what I've been thinking about for the last couple of decades. And so for me, the mission and vision has always remained the same, but the application has changed. Like it used to be, I think I can make the biggest impact in AI or in blockchain. Now I think I can make the biggest impact in AI, and so I'm very focused on AI.
Wow, beautiful. Okay. So, Jesse, as an entrepreneur, what's been your most transformative failure and what did it teach you?
Most transformative failure. So a long time ago, I started a company that was focused on. This was when social media was brand new. It was focused on helping companies market and advertise in the social media world, and worked really, really hard. Went into debt, borrowed money to start this company, um, and was making pretty good progress, pushing super, super hard to get clients, and uh, and got to this place where all of a sudden we had a lot of traction, and there were a lot of people that were interested in coming on board, and they wanted our help, and so I was signing all these clients up, and then ultimately found a few celebrities that wanted our help, right? And so a couple of guys in like professional sports teams, and all these people came on board, and my success killed me. It bankrupted the company. There was too much success too quickly and not enough infrastructure to support it. And so I ended up shutting that company down, uh, with massive amounts of debt in place that I needed to pay off to creditors. And for me personally, that was probably the time that I learned that it is incredibly important to work in the business, and not neglect that instead of just working on the business. Meaning, I was off trying to make the business successful without actually building the critical infrastructure that makes the business run. Uh, and Yeah, and that I think that for me was probably my biggest failure. And the thing that I learned is you have to build infrastructure inside your business if you want it
Mm.
to survive, because at the end of the day, you can't produce the value you think you're going to produce unless you actually have the support structure inside your company to do that.
Beautiful. So, Jesse, what advice would you give to founders looking to future-proof their businesses with AI?
I mean, number one, don't just stick your head in the sand. Like, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that are just ignoring it. Like, that's what they're doing. They're just ignoring it. Or they're in denial. Like, oh, it doesn't exist. It can't come from my job. Um, so, like, number one, like, have an open mind and realize that the world's going to change. And if you don't at least recognize it, you're going to be affected, like, very negatively because you're not going to see it coming. If you're the farmer who thinks that tractors are a bad idea, and all of your neighbors go and buy tractors, you're the farmer who's also going out of business. Like, just plain and simple. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how many people you hire, you're not going to compete with the guy that has the tractor. And so, like, realize that AI is the tractor, and especially in the digital labor space. And if you don't at least start looking into it, you're going to be obsolete. So that's number one. But number two, I would say, is like what I tell people who don't know where to start and how to get into this is I tell it just very simply start with one small thing.
Mm.
For instance, go create an AI driven newsletter and make it awesome. Where you build an agentic system, that agentic system goes out and gathers information that your clients are going to be interested in. It compiles it, sends it to you in a way so you can read it and approve it, and then shoots it out to all of your entire list of people. Like, go do something small and simple, and see how it impacts your business. Maybe do automated project management checks where you're checking your CRM. Actually, maybe that's the thing to do. Go see if your salespeople are leaving notes in the CRM, and build an agentic system that looks at the notes and then emails them if they're doing a bad job. So you'd no longer have to have a sales manager who's checking on the CRM all the time. Or even better yet, when someone inputs somebody new into the CRM, go have an agentic system that reads the transcripts from the call that the salesperson was just on, does a deep research on everything they can find about that person, and then the AI agent updates the CRM with all of that information. Just go build one small thing and then see how that
Mhm.
affects your company. I think what happens with people is they get very overwhelmed with this idea that they have to do everything. Well, I didn't start by doing everything. I started by doing one small, simple thing on my client onboarding. And then that changed my client onboarding. And so then I moved to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And so that's generally what I tell people is, and if you don't know where to start, go find someone like me who's really passionate about this and just have a conversation with me. I'll give you 15 ideas of what you could do with really simple things that are going to affect your business in some positive way, and you can start playing around with it.
Wow, beautiful. So, my last question for your professional journey round, Jesse, looking ahead, what does, according to you, AI workforce of 2030 will look like?
I mean, I by 2030, man. So we're talking five years from now. I think that half of the knowledge work jobs are going to be replaced by AI. I actually think it'll be higher. I think 60%, um, which means like those little examples that I just gave you, people aren't going to be putting notes into CRMs anymore. That's going to happen automatically. People aren't going to be creating task lists for themselves of things they have to do tomorrow for clients. It's going to happen automatically. Marketing teams aren't going to be doing SEO research and meta keyword research and and all of that stuff. That's going to happen automatically. First drafts of blogs aren't going to be written by people. They're going to be written by machines. Project management for Scrum and all of the other, development methodologies for holding people accountable. This stuff's going to be happening, automatically. all like I think most of the accountability systems inside a company are going to be tracked by AI instead of people. Most of project management, probably all of HR, lots of financial insights. Like I think that human beings are going to be working with AI like we work with people. You know, I have AI agents in my Slack, and when I need them to do stuff, I send them a message. They do it and they get it back to me. I talk to them like I talk to my employees. I interact with them in that same way, and I believe that my generation of labor, you know, the last decade of labor, is the last. We are the last people on planet Earth that will only manage humans. You know, by 2030, every manager will be managing AI employees and humans. And I think that if you take it out another 10 years after that, by 2040, I think you're gonna have humans being managed by AI. And to some extent, I think that'll even happen by 2030. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my vision for what labor looks like with AI. I mean, it's going to change a lot.
Yeah, very true. Okay, so let's go to the next round and the personal round and understand Jesse as a person. Tell us about your family and your formative years.
Um, I mean, I grew up at least in America, a very very poor white kid in North Idaho. You know, lived in a trailer park, which is like kind of the ghetto of North Idaho. My dad was a garbage man for most of my life, and eventually became a a carpenter. And so, you know, I had nobody giving me anything. I don't think my parents, I don't know if they ever gave me a dollar. Like they never gave me anything my entire life as far as money was concerned. And so from a very, very young age, I knew that if I wanted something, I had to go and figure out how to get it myself. Um, and so inside kind of that environment that I was cooked in, I was also homeschooled. So I didn't go to a public school or, you know, or a private school. And, uh, and that meant I was, you know, my mother was my teacher, which had its advantages and disadvantages. And when I was 14 years old, I was just so sick of it. I hated learning. I didn't understand, like, what's the point of learning algebra? How is this ever going to help me in my life? What's the point of learning all this science? Like, how's it ever going to help me in my life? I just want to go make money. You know, it's the one thing I didn't have, and it's the one thing that I really wanted. And so I, when I was 14 years old, I told my mom, I'm done with school. I'm not going to do it anymore. And she said, that's fine, but you have to finish 12th through 12th grade. And I think it was in grade seven. Um, and so I said, okay, well, I'll finish it then. So I sat down and I did school for 12 hours a day, every single day, you know, 6, 7 days a week, until I finished high school. I was 14 years old when I finished high school. And then I went and got all my state testing done and did all my tests so that they actually knew that I'd finished school. And when that happened, I thought, okay, easy street. Now I'm going to hang out in my room. I'm going to play video games. I'm going to read books. This is the easy life. And my dad sat down with me and said, hey, now that you're done with high school, you have two choices. You can go to college and go to university, which I had just finished school. I hated school. There was no way on earth I was going to go to university. He said, or you can start paying me $500 a month room and board, which for me at the time, $500 a month, that sounded like a fortune. Like I had never even seen $500 in one place in my entire life. Um, and so I asked him for a week to think about it, and I went and checked out the local university to see if I wanted to go there, and I just decided I couldn't do it. I didn't want to go back to school. I hated school so much. Um, and so I told him, yeah, I'll go get a job. Now I didn't have a car, and we lived 20 miles outside of town in the country. And
Mhm.
so there was no, I couldn't walk 20 miles a day to go to work. I didn't have a way to get to work, but I found this guy who was five miles away. Um, so what is that, like 7 kilometers, 8 kilometers away, who was building a house, and went over and asked him for a job. And he said no to the skinny little, you know, 15-year-old kid. Um, And so I went and told my dad, super discouraged. Like, I tried to get a job. This guy wouldn't give me a job. My dad made me a deal. He said, listen, if you go work with that guy full time, I won't charge you room and board because at least you'll be learning a skill. And I went, okay, sweet. So I showed up on Monday and he's like, hey, I told you I wasn't going to hire you. And I said, I'm going to work for free. And so for the next 9 months, I worked with that guy. And after 9 months, he after 9 months, he sat me down one morning before we started work, and he said, "Jesse, I've actually been feeling kind of guilty because you're really useful, and I feel like I'm taking advantage of it at this point, and so I'd like to give you a gift." And he gave me $1,000, which was more money than I had ever seen in my entire life. And so I used 800 of it and went and bought a car, and blew the other 200 bucks on something stupid, probably. Um, and yeah, then I started driving to work. He got me my next job. I worked for that guy for a while. Then I started my own company 2 years later. And yeah, that's what my life looked like as a kid. It was a wild ride.
Oh, good. So, what's a habit or ritual that keeps you grounded amidst your busy schedule?
Every single day, I wake up in the morning and I spend some time in meditation and just focusing myself for the craziness of the day, realizing what matters in life, that business is secondary, that all of my hopes and dreams are secondary. Like human beings are we're physical, right? Like we have to take care of our bodies. We're there's a mental side to us where we have to take care of our minds, but there's also like a spiritual side to us that I think that if we don't take care of, we create lots and lots of problems for ourselves. And so for me, that is one of the, I would say, probably the most important habit for me is taking care of the spiritual side of who I am, which I neglected for all of my life for the most part. Um, and then the other one is uh, paying attention. Like I said, human beings forget things like really quickly. And so I keep a running list of all the things that are goals and like I guess priorities and stuff that I'm focusing on so that I can remember. Because I want to remember what it is that was important to me 3 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. And I spend a lot of energy doing that. And so those two habits, like journaling and going back over my old journals, and then meditating on a daily basis, I would say are the two most important things in my life as far as habits.
Wow. Okay. So, Jesse, who has been the biggest influence in shaping your entrepreneurial mindset?
Zach Doty, um, may he rest in peace. Probably as just he really showed me how to leverage myself in ways that I had not seen. But then professionally, I would say Steve Jobs. I think that of all the people that have been alive in my lifetime, Steve Jobs has had the biggest impact on humanity of almost anybody. In the kind of ways that I care about. Like he really cared about user experience, and I love his story and what he has done. And that's coming from a guy who like I didn't even own an Apple device until a year ago. I just loved him as an entrepreneur. What the stuff he did at DreamWorks and just as an entrepreneur, Steve Jobs was brilliant.
Wow. So, Jesse, you've built a company around freeing people's time. How do you personally spend your free time?
The truth is, my hobbies include business. No, I mean I spend a lot of time working on the business uh, and in the business, but I I do two things for fun. One, I have a farm. I love to watch things grow, and so I have a 5 acre hobby farm. I've got pigs and goats and chickens and bees at times, and I want to get rabbits, and I've got 3 dogs and a bunch of cats, and a big garden and a big greenhouse. And so like I take care of my farm, and that is for me that is a very fun thing. And then the other thing that I do is my goats. They're pack goats, and so I put packs on them, and I bring them up into the mountains and go backpacking and trekking with my animals. And so uh, those are probably the two things that I do for fun. And read.
Wow.
I like to read. I read a lot.
I'm coming to that question. Thank you for leading me to that question. Which book or movie has left a lasting impression on you?
My favorite book of all time probably has been well, I'll do one business book, one fiction book. How was that? So E-Myth is probably my favorite business book of all time, by Michael Gerber. It and you'll have heard this as a theme in my story, but he focuses on what it looks like to work in your business instead of just on your business, um, or vice versa, I guess. And like it's a book all about how to run a business, how to start a business, what it looks like to be an entrepreneur. And in my opinion, one of the best books ever written. Uh, and then there's a bunch of like the startup is another book that I love. Scaling Up is another book that I love. Good to Great is another book that I love. There's a ton of business books, but I would say the E Myth has been the best book. I read it once a year, sometimes twice a year if I feel like I need to. Yeah, my favorite business book of all time. And then on the fun side, in the fantasy genre, Lord of the Rings is probably my favorite book series of all times. I've read everything that J.R.R. Tolkien has ever written.
Mhm.
And then for sci-fi, Ender's Game. I think Ender's Game is has got to be one of my yeah, it's got to be one of my favorite books.
Wow. Okay. So, Jesse, what's the most adventurous thing you have ever done outside of work?
The most what thing? Adventurous?
Adventurous. Yes.
My wife and I decided that we were going to be homeless for 90 days, and we hopped on a bus in Idaho, and we traveled around the United States with just backpacks for 3 months, and didn't stay in hotels. We slept on the street and in bus stations, and yeah, we just traveled around like vagabonds for 90 days. That was probably the most adventurous thing I've ever done.
Wow. Beautiful. So, Jesse, if you could live in any city in the world for a year, which would it be and why?
I'd probably live in Dubai. And the reason I'd live in Dubai is I think that Dubai is very innovative at the moment. That would be why I would do it. The truth is, though, the honest answer to that question is I wouldn't live in a city. If I could live anywhere in the world for a year, I would find some mountain in Himachal Pradesh that had no people there that I needed to take a helicopter to. I would build a house on that mountain, and I would live there for a year with no people at all. That's what I would do for a year if I could do anything that I wanted.
Wow. So, Jesse, you have a setup in India. So, what memories do you have of India?
So, my favorite memory of India is the first time I ever visited. You have to realize I'm a country boy from rural North Idaho. The total population of northern Idaho is like 2 million people, and Idaho is like giant. Idaho is like it's like 300 Goas, right? I mean, it's very very big, and the total population of Idaho is I think the same as the population of Goa. And so when I showed up to the NCR to Delhi for the first time, and I walked out of the airport at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was so overwhelmed by the sound and the smells and the noise and the people that I don't know, like it was the most overwhelming experience I've ever had in my entire life. And 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 even to the point where I remember looking at my wife after we'd been in India for about 4 hours, and I said, I think this might have been a mistake. I think we ought to go back to the airport, get on an airplane, and go home. Um, but I was lost at the moment in the middle of the night in Delhi. And I'd already been scammed about 3 times. And it was a crazy experience. Well, that 2 weeks that I spent in India, I fell in love with the place. I fell in love with the noise and the people and the food and the culture and the richness of what it looks like. I absolutely fell in love with India. And so I would say that my favorite memory of India is those 2 weeks of being in this place where of being completely overwhelmed and confused
Wow.
to realizing that that India is, in my opinion, is my favorite country that I've ever been to. If I could live there permanently, I would live there permanently. Except for that, you guys have too many people. I like my privacy, and there's not a lot of that there. But there are some
Okay.
places up north that I think I could probably live, though.
Yeah, there are places. Okay.
Yes.
Uh, so my last two questions are reflective. What legacy would you like to leave behind?
You know, I tell people this sometimes. I just want to have made an impact on the user experience of humanity in some way. And I don't even care that anyone knows my name or what it is that I did. Like the guy who invented HTTP, right? Like that guy has made a massive impact on humanity. And I would guess that if I went and asked 100 people who he is, none of them would know. I mean, I bet you I might have to ask 1,000 people or 5,000 people before somebody actually knows the name of the guy who did it. I don't mind if I'm that guy, that no one knows my name and what it is that I've done, but I want to have left by the time I die some sort of a lasting impact like HTTP that changes the way that the world works. And maybe there'll be a 2 paragraph Wikipedia article about me, and I'll be fine. If that happens, I'm golden.
Wow, beautiful. So my last one is a googly one. Describe Jesse in one line.
Depends on who's describing me. I describe Jesse in one line. I saw this question on the deal, and I actually thought about it for a little bit. Then I forgot to think about it enough to be able to answer it. There's so many lines that describe Jesse. You know what? In one line, uh, I am an innovator that really wants the world to uh, that really wants the world to change from a scarcity mindset to a mindset of plenty.
Wow, beautiful. So let's go to the next round and put you in the hot seat, the rapid fire round. Your go-to comfort food,
Hamburgers, probably.
AI or blockchain?
AI.
One word that describes your leadership style.
Visionary.
Wow. An AI tool you can't live without.
There's a bajillion of them, but large language models, I don't know. Uh, that's what I use
Okay,
every
cool.
day.
Wow. Your favorite color?
Blue.
Wow. Best piece of advice received?
Hire people that are smarter than you.
Wow. Okay. Uh, Best Indian food dish you had while you were in India? Your favorite food dish?
Oh my gosh, that is so hard. That's an unfair question. I don't know that I could have just one. So I had some really good biryani from Hyderabad that someone
Mm.
brought to me, and that was amazing. Uh, I never had a dosa before. It was I had my first dosa experience, and
Oh.
dosa is like one of the best things I've ever had in my entire life. Loved dosa.
Oh.
I had these banana buns from this little like breakfast place that were just to die for. Like one of the best things I've ever eaten. Beer. Yeah. So like that was amazing. I don't know. I had so much good food while I was in India. It's like an unfair question. But I would say if I had to pick one, it'd be the dosa. I love dosa. I don't know.
Oh,
I love dosa. It's probably my favorite food that I've. Oh no, you know what? That's not true. You know what my
oh,
favorite food was? I just remembered. So, and I don't remember the name of it, but uh so there's the pani puri stands that sell like the puri with it,
Golgappas.
but then yes, but they have the other one with all the little like it's got the graham the yellow like graham flakes on it, and it's got tamarind juice inside, and
Yeah,
like those things, whatever those are called that I can't remember.
pani puri, pani puri.
Those Yes, basically pani puri, but it wasn't a pani puri. It was some other puri, and I can't remember what it was.
Ragda puri, ragda puri.
Yes, maybe that's what it was. It was that is probably my favorite food that I've ever had in all of India,
Ooh,
for sure.
wow.
Actually, top of the
Okay.
list.
Wow, superb. Okay, so my last one, coffee or energy drinks?
Neither. I'm not a huge caffeine guy. So if I had to choose coffee over energy drinks.
Okay, cool. You did well, and here's your book, which we autograph and send to you, Jesse.
Awesome.
So, uh, today's conversation, Jesse, has been nothing short of transformative. From unlocking the power of digital labor to embracing the creative freedom that AI promises, you have shown us how the future of work is already taking shape. Your journey with rapid innovation is a blueprint for every founder and leader who wants to harness technology without losing the human touch. To our viewers out there, uh, let Jesse's story inspire you to step boldly into the AI revolution. But I would say it will be the digital labor, which will be the next industrial revolution. Uh, it is powerful, impactful words you have made, Jesse, where human ingenuity and digital intelligence will work hand in hand to redefine what's possible. Thank you for joining us, Jesse. And until next time, keep innovating, keep dreaming, and keep sipping on conversations that spark the future. So, our viewers out there, subscribe to the Coffee Conversation Show, where there are 500 coffee speakers who have shared their professional, personal, inspiring journey. And we have not only covered speakers from India, but globally all over the world. And if you want to feature like Jesse, you can visit our website, the Emerging India Forum, or LinkedIn page, or connect with one of the coffee speakers. Jesse got invited through his team. So Sharmista, so thank you to Sharmista for getting us Jesse. And he likes Indian food, biryani, pani puri, ragda petis. And when were you in India, Jesse? We would continue a conversation. I'll take you to Mumbai street food to have
Done.
wonderful food over here. So, over, so we
Yeah,
continue
I would
conversation. Cup of
I would
coffee.
love to do that. Next time I come to India, I will stop by Mumbai. We'll do it live instead of on Zoom, and do the
Sure,
real
sure. That's
thing,
a
and then
promise.
afterwards we'll go out and get some good food.
That's a promise. Okay, take care.
Awesome. Lion, thank you.
Yeah.